What's going on, fantasy football fans? I'm your host, Hussein the Brain, and you're watching The Couch. These are the players you need to add for Week 13. The fantasy woes from last week are Gronkowski re-injured his back, got us 0 fantasy points. Or we can go with the kickers. Again, we had some kicker disappointments. You could go with Dan Carpenter, who I thought was going to ball out. I had him in my league, didn't do so good. Luckily, I got the win still. Or Adam Vinatieri, who didn't do anything. Or we can go with the biggest disappointment, which could be Sterling Shepard. 0 targets, 0 receptions, 22 rushing yards. But I think hands down easily everyone knows the absolute biggest disappointment from last week in fantasy. It has to be Brandon Cooks. Saints put up 7 touchdowns, 49 points, and Cooks had 0 targets and 0 receptions. Brandon Cooks, congratulations. You were last week's biggest fantasy disappointment. This is the final week of bye weeks. 2 teams are on bye for Week 13, the Cleveland Browns and the Tennessee Titans. Let's kick it off with some obvious quarterback adds and drops this week. You can go ahead and drop Blake Bortles if you're still playing fantasy football and you're still watching my videos and you do own Blake Bortles. Good for you. So you go ahead and drop him. What a bust this year, guys. What a bust. I mean, enough said about that guy. He has a tough schedule too. So if that's your QB2, well, if it's your QB1, you're probably not watching this video and you probably stop playing. But if he's your QB2, I mean, he's got a tough schedule. You can drop him, get a better quarterback, I think, or you just get a position that's going to block your opponent from getting better. Let's say your opponent needs a wide receiver, a running back, or tight end. Boom, pick that player up. Yeah, I mean, Blake Bortles, like, really is just no bueno. Like, I really think I would rather have 2 defenses on my squad looking into the playoffs. We're going to be looking a lot at the playoff schedule this week, than to have Blake Bortles as a QB2. Blake Bortles is a guy I'm not starting this week playing against the Broncos. And I don't see starting any game, really, in the playoffs. I think he has one good schedule. No, he doesn't really. No, not really. Yeah, he doesn't really have a good schedule at all. Wow. Yeah, you could go ahead and drop him. Okay. Now, some obvious names to pick up. Okay, Matthew Stafford playing against the Saints this week. Now, I may ask, why the heck am I mentioning Stafford? He's already owned in my league. He actually was dropped a little bit. He's been in a fantasy slump. They've been winning games. The Lions have been doing pretty good. But as far as Stafford goes, he dropped off a little bit since the first few weeks of the season. But now they're playing against the Saints. This is slated to be the highest scoring game this week. Has a lot of potential to be a shootout, and has a lot of potential for the Lions being down in the 4th quarter and having to throw the ball to try to come back and win the game. Stafford, tons of potential. Great spot start this week. Same thing with Jameis Winston. A guy's probably owned, but not owned enough, I think. His ownership percentage should be higher. He's playing against the Chargers. He's a pretty volatile quarterback, but he's great, man. This guy's talented. He needs to be owned in just about every league, at least as a QB2 or a spot start this week. And here's an obvious one that's actually not owned in a lot of leagues. I'm always the first fantasy expert to mention this guy. I remember back 5 years ago, whenever it was, when I was the first one to say pick up Kaepernick, and everyone else was like, hey, don't go overboard on this guy. I mean, just be quiet, guys. Colin Kaepernick, he's actually far exceeded my expectations. He's actually been one of the best fantasy quarterbacks since he's been the starter. And he was rusty the first couple weeks. Still maybe a little rusty, but I think some of the rust is gone. We saw that last week. He didn't have a horrible second half. And this past week, he was the best fantasy quarterback on a road game in Miami. Very impressive, I think. And a guy who should be owned in just about every league. You're looking for your quarterback suck. You're looking for a backup quarterback. Colin Kaepernick's your guy. Decent start this week too. His floor is extremely high. Just every week he's been consistent. So you got to pick him up. I like Tyrod Taylor. He's on this list. He's a safe guy, okay? Not a guy you're dying to start. He's more of a backup quarterback. But that's why I have him ranked so high. He's definitely safe and reliable, especially with Sammy Watkins back. Just imagine how it is on defense when you play against the Bills. Horrific. It's a nightmare with Sammy Watkins. And you got Charles Clay, you got Sammy Watkins, you got incredible athlete in Tyrod Taylor. They try really hard not to turn the ball over. He can pass the ball, he can run the ball. And then you have Shady McCoy. Wow, that is a nightmare. They run the option, they run all sorts of plays. Nothing's off limit with this team. So that's why I like Tyrod Taylor. They're going against Oakland. Should be down a few points, and Tyrod Taylor is going to probably have to throw the ball the fourth quarter to come back. Ryan Fitzpatrick, a guy that's been horrible. The magic part has worn off this year. But they have some really good matches, especially against the Colts. Could be a little bit of a shootout here. Andrew Luck's expected to be back, and wow, the Colts need Andrew Luck back. So I really do like Ryan Fitzpatrick as a spot start. He's pretty good. This is getting more into deep leagues and other territories. As you know, if you're playing week 13 and you're competitive, you probably have a better option than Ryan Fitzpatrick. But definitely worth a mention in this video. I really like him as a spot start. Same thing with Carson Palmer. I drafted this guy, and luckily, I also drafted Phillip Rivers a few rounds after, because my season would have been over if it wasn't for Phillip Rivers. And also, thankfully, I was able to pick up a Kaepernick. Because gosh, has Palmer been such a bust. He's so frustrating. I can't believe I started him last week thinking it's going to be somewhat of a shootout. I mean, he did okay, but a lot of quarterbacks did way better, especially the ones I benched. So, but this week, let's not get too emotional, guys. This week, he's okay, going against Washington. Next week, he's okay, playing in Miami. And then that would be week 15, I believe, playing against the Saints. Could be a little bit of a shootout there. That's why he's not ranked so high. I even have Fitzpatrick ranked one ahead of him. I'm really, he's not a guy you want to bank on week 13 when you need to make the playoffs or get that week 1 bye, get that number 1 seed, or start in the playoffs. Not a reliable guy. Some more names in deeper leagues. You have Alex Smith, has some great matchups. Andy Dalton. Now, I put him in mainly because AJ Green could be back soon. I believe he's not going to be back week 13, but could be back soon after. And if he's back in the playoffs, him and Eifert's healthy, then Andy Dalton's value goes up. Andy Dalton's definitely worth consideration. People should be dropping him more and more now that AJ Green is gone. And in even deeper leagues, we have Trevor Siemian, Brock Osweiler, and Matt Barkley if you're super duper desperate, or whatever Bears quarterback is starting. Titans defense was awful, but Barkley surprised me. He actually played well, not bad at all, put up some good fantasy numbers. So that's a little bit of a shock, but I have him ranked last on the QB pickups, and that's really in dual QB and super deep leagues. For running backs, look for Kenneth Dixon in PPR leagues. Still not owned in enough leagues, guys. Matt Asiata, he's the guy who gets the touchdowns on the Vikings, and that's why I like him. I dropped him, and I think I might pick him back up now. Running backs are scarce. And Bilal Powell, Duke Johnson in PPR leagues. Duke Johnson is on bye. Keep that in mind. Derrick Henry, they said they're going to play this guy more, and I always liked him as a handcuff. I always liked him in games where the Titans are heavily favorited to win. But looking at his schedule, he's on bye this week, by the way. Looking at his schedule, there's not really any favorable matchups. There's not too many games, maybe one game where the Titans will blow out the other team, maybe 2 at the most. I don't really like him, but if you own DeMarco Murray, I suggest picking him up if you're desperate for a running back. This is a guy I kind of like. You can pick him up. You don't have to get him on waivers either. If he's available out there, there's a good chance people will leave him, and you don't have to use a waiver claim to get a guy like Derrick Henry since he is on bye. Some more guys to add. D'Angelo Williams could be coming back real soon from that injury. Capri Bibbs, Charles Sims, same thing, could be coming back in a couple weeks from that injury. I don't know that though. Don't quote me, but I'm just saying he could come back this regular season. Jalen Richard makes it again on the list for PPR owners. We have Rex Burhead now that Gio Bernard is out for the season. Alfred Morris and Sharkandrick West are more like handcuffs. Benjamin Cunningham, we're getting really deep on this list here. Benjamin Cunningham, Andre Ellington, Jeremy Langford, and Amir Abdullah could be making a regular season return as well. For wide receivers, I'm surprised to find a ton of excellent names on here. Just about all these guys, dang near, could be excellent pickups no matter what league you're in. We have these are the awesome ones. Tyreek Hill, Quincy Enunwa, Mohamed Sanu. I have Sanu slightly ahead of Gabriel. And everyone's going to love Gabriel, okay? Everyone's going to be, oh, ooh, ah. Remember, there's a guy named Julio Jones on that offense, okay? Also remember, Sanu is there too. So some weeks Gabriel will go off, some weeks Sanu will go off, and a lot of weeks Julio Jones will go off. That's what makes this offense so awesome. That's what makes Matt Ryan one of the best fantasy quarterbacks, an elite fantasy quarterback this year. Malcolm Mitchell, a guy that's not involved in a lot of offensive snaps, not thrown to a ton, but 3 touchdowns the past 2 weeks. I like it. I watched a lot of the Patriots play, and I like this guy. Sometimes you got to throw out the stats, and I just think he's good. When have we seen a rookie wide receiver on the Patriots play this well? It's been so long. Gosh, I can't even think of a guy. Aaron Dobson, he's not on the team anymore. God, I really can't think of it. This is a team that drafts. They draft players they can trust. They draft smart players. Tom Brady throws to the guys they trust. They have their ways. And Malcolm Mitchell getting thrown the ball to and scoring touchdowns is a huge plus for me. So I do like him. Now, he's going to be, you just can't really trust any Patriots players in fantasy. It's really, especially right now, when you got Marty Bennett, you got Chris Hogan, Gronk's hurt, Danny Amendola, Edelman, Lewis, who do I start? Lewis or Blunt or James White? I freaking don't know. And that's why he's going to be more of a wide receiver 4 or 5 on your team and add depth. That's the only thing that sucks. But I'm telling you, man, I like him. Dorial Green-Beckham, he's probably now going to be the second wide receiver over there. May receive the second be the second highest targeted receiver period over there. But like I said, I really like him. But also you got Zach Ertz, you got Wentz, who doesn't throw too much. They're not a great explosive passing team. Jordan Hill's a little bit Jordan Matthews a little bit banged up. I don't think it's serious though. I think he'll be able to play week 13, but double check that before you play him or you want to know about Dorial Green-Beckham. I mean, you got Darren Sproles, Ryan. I mean, it's just so many things going on. So that's why I have him ranked so low. He had the first drive, he was awesome. He had like 4 catches and 50 yards. So it was awesome first drive. Then after that, he only had 1 catch. Talking about the Monday Night Football game against the Packers, by the way, where the Eagles had the first drive was good. Then the Eagles just died and it was over. The offense just stopped. And deeper leagues, we have Marquise Wilson and Quan Bolden playing against the Saints. Eli Rogers, Jermaine Kearse, Seth Roberts, and Marquise Lee. For tight ends, if you have Jordan Reed, you're kind of going to need to go get Vernon Davis. And that's really the reason I have him ranked so high. There's a lot of other guys who are really good pickups. But like I said, if you're a Reed owner, go get Vernon Davis. You almost have to do this. Like, you really don't have any other choice. Other guys I really like are Cameron Brate. Ladarius Green should be more involved in that offense. And I just like that combination between Green and Roethlisberger. What we thought might happen between Roethlisberger and Ladarius Green back in June and July might actually start coming true here in the last few weeks of the regular season. Kobe Fleener, great matchup against the Lions. They allow a ton of fantasy points against tight ends. Charles Clay, I have a good feeling about this tight end this week, playing against the Raiders. The Bills will have to throw the ball in the fourth quarter to come back in this game. So I do like Charles Clay, I see him having 7 receptions this game. Lance Kendricks, he's a safe bet. I think Goff will throw to him as a security blanket, as a safety blanket. CJ Fedorowicz, I don't think this guy has a lot of upside. That's why I didn't rank him so high. Vance McDonald, Jermaine Gresham, starting to be kind of a real tight end now. Hunter Henry, Will Tye of the New York Giants, Dennis Pitta. Have him ranked so low because just no upside. You know, he's a great player. They throw to him every game, but just no upside, no touchdowns this game, no red zone targets hardly. Clive Walford has a little bit of potential. Deion Sims of the Dolphins and AJ Derby. Those last few names are in super duper deep leagues, 20-man, 16-man, like super deep leagues. We have some streaming options this week for defenses. Ravens defense, likely owned in your league, but might not be. So we have them playing against the Dolphins. Just been a super consistent defense all year, and this is my safest pick this week to go with the Ravens. That's why I have them ranked number 1. There's some upside picks here, but the Ravens are the safest, closest thing to a sure thing when it comes to fantasy defenses. I like the Patriots. Heavily favored to win. I believe this is the largest point spread. You got the Patriots going against a rookie quarterback in Jared Goff, the most boringest freaking offense in the league. The Rams, gosh. Oh man, this game's gonna be just like, this is a game I would not watch if I didn't play fantasy. Don't want to watch freaking the Rams play. I'll tell you that right now. So freaking boring. We have the Cowboys going against the Vikings. Cowboys defense has been okay. I mean, we all know what's up with them. They like to run the ball with Zeke, keep the defense off the field, play smart. Somewhat predictable, but hey man, it works for them. They sometimes, you know, what the opposing team knows what they're doing, but hey, try to stop it, they can't stop it. Now the Vikings don't score any points on offense, so that's why I like the Cowboys. They're ranked so high on my list. We have the Eagles. Now I would rank them maybe a little bit higher. I actually have them ranked too high, if anything, because they're not at home, and when they're not at home, they suck. Chargers going against the Bucks. That's pretty volatile right there. Chargers defense isn't that good, but sometimes they get a ton of points on fantasy, force turnovers, get some sacks, etc., etc. Packers going against the Texans. Texans offense is horrible. Bengals going against the Eagles, as I mentioned. Bengals are at home. Their defense is horrible this year. I hate them. But they're going against the Eagles. And they're in Cincinnati, so hey, I got to put them on this list. Steelers D going against the Giants. Now, I have them ranked pretty low. Now, Steelers D, the reason they've been doing well and the reason I've streamed them and played them is because they had bad matchups. Now, I don't want to take too much credit away from them. Their defense has improved. They are better, but they've been playing well because of the matchups. They played against the luckless Colts. They played against the boo-boo Browns. Now they're playing against the Giants. Totally different scenario. Could be a little bit of a shootout here between Eli Manning and Ben Roethlisberger. Le'Veon Bell sure to get involved too. So I don't have them ranked that high. But if you're desperate, you can go with them. And if you're super desperate, I also have the Niners defense. Don't laugh. I have the Bears defense playing each other. I have, it could be a little windy game too, guys. So keep that in mind. When there's a lot of wind, it affects the total points. It affects a lot of upside, a lot of deep balls being thrown, etc. Shorter passes, less pass attempts. Jaguars going against the Broncos and the Colts going against the Jets. We saw some of the things that Fitzpatrick did this week. And for kickers, surprisingly, Santos, McManus, not owned in a lot of leagues. Shoot, pick them up. Those two guys need to be owned in just about every league. I also like Josh Lambo, Lutt, Prater, Catanzaro, and Janikowski a lot this week. Janikowski is more of a high-risk guy, a little bit more long-term. I like Chandler Catanzaro only this week, so only week 13 short-term pickup. And in deeper leagues, if you're super desperate, I got Caleb Sturgis. He's actually been pretty good. I have a good feeling about Chris Boswell, so I'm going to put him on this list. Robbie Gould, I'm giving you one more chance, buddy, for this week. Don't have too much faith in you, though. If you fail this week, I'm never going to recommend you for DFS or waivers or anything. Nick Folk and Robert Aguaye to round up the kickers for this week. And those are all my waiver wire pickups for week 13. Make sure you guys like the video, leave a comment below. Use hashtag AskTheBrain when you leave a comment below for YouTube, or you're on Instagram or Twitter, whatever social media. Use hashtag AskTheBrain. That way I know you're a true Fantasy Couch fan. Make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let's get to 10K subs. I'll see you guys on the next video.